Could you support Todd Blanche as Attorney General?
We're looking at it. I haven't made a decision yet. The key for Todd or anybody going through Judiciary Committee is being pretty tight on January the 6th. They better not have said for 1 minute that the people that beat up police officers like these right down here were righteous people. You come even close to saying that, you don't have a chair of getting my vote in Judiciary.
That is outgoing Republican Senator Tom Tillis speaking to CNN yesterday, signaling a little trouble perhaps ahead for Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche's confirmation for the permanent role. Meanwhile, a new report from Lawfare found at least 97 of the more than 1,500 people granted clemency by President Trump for their roles in the Capitol attack have been accused of new crimes since January 6, 2021. That is a figure, the report points out, much higher than the public knew. At least 14 people have been charged with sex crimes or crimes related to child sexual abuse material. At least 6 have faced domestic violence charges. Others have faced charges for physical assaults, illegal firearms possession, or other violent crimes. And at least 20 have been charged with driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs or public intoxication. The report notes, perhaps most strikingly, 5 recipients of presidential clemency were arrested in connection with conduct that occurred, at least in part, subsequent to Trump's freeing them from prison, meaning Trump's clemency order on the first day of his second term may have actively facilitated criminal conduct. They include one person convicted of child molestation, another convicted of felony charges of grand larceny and burglary, and another charged after allegedly threatening a person with a gun in a church parking lot. Joining us now, the journalist behind that report, Associate Editor of Lawfare, Catherine Pompilio. Catherine, thanks for joining us again this morning. Take us through a little more, if you would, some of what you found in this report. It is striking to remember, as we just read from some of your piece, that this was essentially President Trump's first act in office on his first day of his second term, was to empty the prisons of January 6 rioters.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for having me. There have been a whole bunch of different estimates leading up to this. Crew had a report that 33 people had been charged with new crimes. The New York Times had a report that 39 people had been charged with new crimes. I found that 97 people have been charged with new crimes since January 6th. We published a systematic study that with citation information on each claim, with links to court records that nobody has done before. So these crimes include everything from murder, DUIs, rape, possession of child pornography. A whole lot is going on with these individuals.
And as you say, you're likely missing some cases too. This is by far the most exhaustive reporting we've seen on this, but it's hard even to know how many crimes were committed. Can you talk a little bit more about the reporting process?
Yeah, so I think it's important to mention that first, pardoned individuals have no monitoring requirements, unlike parolees. They just kind of disappear. And a lot of them also have common names that end up in county level courts with no reference to January 6th. So what we did at Lawfare is we had a list of about 1,500 plus people. We then did multiple searches. We automated those searches. So we did multiple searches per person. And we scrolled through pages and pages and pages of hyperlocal news, as well as a lot of sentencing memoranda from the federal cases that revealed a lot of information. So there's a huge amount of data that we found just on this group of people. But I also think it's important to remember that Trump's clemency order covers not just the 1,500 plus people that were prosecuted by the Justice Department. It covered everybody that was there that day. Most recently, last week, there's a man in Colorado Springs who's just accused of murdering somebody on the side of a road. He was never prosecuted formally by the Justice Department for January 6th, but we know he was there from photos and videos that he had posted on his Facebook, and he posted that there was a dark cloud lifted over his head on the day of the pardons. So there's a lot. I expect to find a lot more people as we keep looking.
So, Michael, as the reporting points out from Catherine and Lawfare, some of these are relatively low-grade offenses post-January 6th, property damage, possession of drug paraphernalia, et cetera. But some are indeed grand larceny, stalking, planning to assassinate politicians and law enforcement officials. And I remember when this happened, again, the first hours of President Trump's term, the reaction from law enforcement being like, okay, of disbelief that some of these people were being allowed back on the streets, but also the fear that this pardon, some sort of pardon like this could happen again. There could even be setting a precedent down the road for more and more people to feel like, well, maybe we'll get away with something because the president, if we commit violence in the president's name, he may give us pardons or clemency.
Yeah, this type of clemency, as you were saying, sent a signal. It basically sent a signal that if you're willing to go to these extraordinary lengths to do the president's bidding, that the president will, look favorably upon you. I mean, that is obviously as clear as could be about how he did this. This was something that Republicans, kept on saying he wouldn't do, and it was obviously the first thing that he did do. I remember talking to some of the officers that had been there on January 6th about like what this meant to them and what a wounding, awful thing it was for them to hear that these individuals that had physically assaulted them were now going back on the street and were going to be able to be free citizens and not have to face the consequences. I think that thought was never in many of their minds at the time that they went through all of these prosecutions. We have to remember that not only was January 6th the obviously event that it was, it is the largest criminal investigation in the Justice Department's history. It has encompassed the most amount of people that have been charged, the most amount of people that were sentenced. Someone from every single state was put behind bars by the Justice Department in these cases. There's more evidence from these cases than in any other American crime. It's the most documented crime in American history, with hours and hours and hours, days worth of footage from people's phones, from body camera footage, from surveillance footage of what happened. We all saw it happen. It all played out. So it was the largest, in terms of personnel at the Justice Department that worked on this. It was the largest personnel intensive investigation in its history. And now as Lawfare has documented and others have documented, it has led to more crime.
Coming up, the May jobs report is crossing this hour. CNBC's Andrew Ross Sorkin joins us live to break down the new numbers. Morning Joe's back in a moment.